Action!
Ce grand réalisateur hollywoodien pourrait bien être le réalisateur le plus sombre que New York ait connu. Il a débuté en réalisant des films pornographiques sous le pseudonyme Jimmy Boy. Son premier film à l'affiche, Driller Killer, remarqué par William Friedkin, lui a permis d'enchaîner dans de plus grandes productions comme New York 2h du matin avec Tom Berenger et Melanie Griffith, The King of New York avec un casting incroyable dont le très excentrique Christopher Walken et Nos funérailles. Son succès s'est confirmé avec des films indépendants comme Mary avec Juliette Binoche et Forest Whitaker, Go-Go-Tell et 4h44 Derniers jours sur Terre avec Willem Dafoe. Mais c'est probablement son flic toxicomane joué par Harvey Keitel qui nous aura marqué à jamais dans son chef-d'œuvre Bad Lieutenant.
My name's ABEL Ferrara and welcome to Hollywood's best film directors. We're down in Little Italy, Lower East Side, Manhattan. Marcello Assante's Mambo Italiano, the only legitimate Italian, real Italian restaurant, Neapolitan style, on the block. This was John Gotti's favorite restaurant. Okay, Gotti's club was across the street. You know, and there was a time that the cat was actually hanging out, you know what I mean? And, you know, these guys were all on a block at the time. And, but then, you know, the place was closed for 2 years. You know, but now Marcello opened it back up, so. I was from the Morris Park section of the Bronx, which is kind of near the Bronx Zoo. It's not the South Bronx, you know. You know, the Bronx is, you know, there's a ghetto in the Bronx, but the Bronx isn't a ghetto, you know what I mean? So you have the South Bronx, you have Riverdale, you have where the, like underneath the George Washington Bridge, the cloisters. You know, there's some of the most beautiful homes and beautiful places along the Hudson River, and then you have the other parts of the Bronx. Where I grew up was a very, very Italian neighborhood. It's an unbelievable story. My grandfather coming at 19 with no money, somehow spending 1 year and making a substantial amount of money, enough to go back to the town and bring like 15, 20 of his closest friends and relatives back. And they set up their own community in this part of the Bronx that at that time was very, very, you know, it was like being in the farms. It was like, and they recreated Naples or Sarno. And in that community, I grew up. My father was a very complex guy. You know, he was a degenerate gambler. He was, you know, he had an alcohol problem. Forget it. But, you know, he was a big earner. He was very charismatic. You know, he was like the leader of the entire family, you know. And, you know, I was his only son, so. But from where I come from, there's no question, you know, you love your father. I mean, you know, I adored my father, I adored my uncles. In an Italian family, the first son is named after the father's father. So I was named Abel because of my grandfather. But there was 6 other Abels in this neighborhood. I thought my name was like John, you know. And I didn't realize until I left this community and I never met another Abel, you know. I went to a lot of different schools because at that time there was no digital equipment. You needed real equipment to make films. To make sound films, you know, we were shooting on eclairs at the time, you know, Sennheisers. I mean, there was no way to raise money to shoot on that stuff and buy and you know, track film unless you were hooked up to a school, purchased SUNY. You know, I went there, I graduated, and I hung out there somehow using the equipment for another couple of years. You know what I'm saying? But at a certain point, you have got to, you know, finance a film. You know, you're gonna have to live off what you do as a person, you know. We had to earn money making movies. 9 Lives of a Wet Pussycat is what it's called in the theaters. Our title was White Women, actually. We just started making a porno film as the first and easiest way to raise a budget. The pros that we hired couldn't even get it up. So imagine paying a guy to screw your girlfriend and they can't get it up. That's really a put down. But anyway, it's like anything else. When you're doing it, you got to do it. You know, you got to be all in. You know, I mean, it's no bullshit. If you're not willing to get in front of that camera, then don't ask somebody else to do it. You know, this is the way we did. Through the connections we made with 9 Lives, we got the money to make Driller Killer, and then eventually Ms. 45. I mean, I played the Driller Killer only because I knew it was a long road that we were going to make that film, and I didn't want to have to depend on it. You know, someone else that might be into it, might not, you know, might get hurt, something might go wrong, you know. And we knew how to make films. Like I said, at that point we had made films for 10 years, and this was our first film, so we were buttoned down. I met Kelch, and that's when I first met Kenny, who I'm saying who I still shoot with now. So things were, you know, we knew what we had to do. We shot on weekends. It was the kind of thing you rent if you get the equipment Friday night, and you bring it back Monday morning, you only pay 1 day. So we pull up, we had a 67 Chevy, throw the shit in it, and you know, it was, you know, rock till you drop, you know what I mean? Last man standing. And Kelch was always standing, you know, at the end, so. And you know, we shot like say 4 or 5 weekends, got the stuff together, used that, raised the money, went back and had like a real shoot. Actually, I don't think, maybe Kenny came when we had the real shoot. Whatever it was, you know. It was a real film, you know. We always write our own stuff, from Driller Killer, 9 Lives, whatever. Everything comes from us, you know what I mean? All right, down the road, we took the books, you know. The Body Snatchers was a great book. You know, the novella of New Rose Hotel. We're trying to do Jekyll and Hyde. These were all great literary pieces, but we're taking them and doing our thing with them, you know what I mean? So at that time, Nicky was writing. Nicky wrote that as an original screenplay. It was obviously, took a while to write. That one took time, but you know, it was the piece. We tried to raise money for a while. Once we got Chris Walken attached, then we got the money. But this was 1989. This was a whole different world. We went to Italy, met with the producers, Berlusconi. He wasn't there, but he was behind the whole deal. And we came back with $5 million. I mean, for an independent guys, for us to go, so $5 million then was $10 million now, okay? So, you know, different world, man. You know, but we had a good script and we had a good actor, so, you know, which is the key. You know, whether you raise money then, here, now. You know, just a little shout out, you know, let me lay a little knowledge on you, like they say. You need this piece, you need the material, you need the script. You know, not part of the script, not maybe the script, not a synopsis of the script. You need the script, and the script's got to be rocking, and you need the actor, because it not only shows you got an actor, it shows that somebody of that merit believes in what you got. That's the point, okay? And with those two things, nowadays, without those two things, don't even think about it. Zoe and I had a fallen out after Ms. 45. So I wasn't really talking to her or doing business with her for like 10, 11, I don't know, from 1980 to 19 whatever. So, you know, she wrote the script, you know what I mean? She wrote the script, I was working with her, you know. It was based on a true story of an actual rape in Spanish Harlem. And this cop, Bo Dietl, actually, the cop that's in the film, plays in the film, right? He's got the beard, he gives that speech in the parking lot, you know, go look at your junkie friends to get this and that, blah, blah. Kind of a famous cop. But he actually tracked these guys down and found them, you know. But again, it was not, you know, they weren't raped in their nuns' outfits on an altar. You know what I mean? I mean, we took license with the character. And the cops that caught him weren't, you know, into drugs, you know. That was a little shock to those guys. But anyway, so, you know, she wrote the script. It was another one of those things. She wrote a really cool script. You know, where ideas come from, this, you know, this is always the key question, you know. And I ask it myself, like, where does an idea come from? You know, I just made a film, 444, Last Day on Earth. You know, thinking it's such an original idea. When the film comes out, there's 4 other movies like it. When we did King of New York, there was 3 or 4 other major gangster movies. You know, just out of the blue kind of at the time. You know, you know, there's something in the zeitgeist, there's something in the air, there's something of a creative idea is really your antenna picking up what's out there for everybody to hear and see, you know? And at the same time, it's coming from inside you. I can only make the films that you know, are ideas. You know, why did I make Bad Lieutenant? Because it was an idea we had for a film. That's what we do, you know. It was that was right in the heart of the era where you could raise money on independent. That was October Films this is when Miramax was still independent, New Line was independent, there was a lot of independent films, independent theaters. People wanted to see these movies, they were there to be made, there was money to make them with. It was the 90s, you know, Wall Street didn't go off kilter, you know what I mean? Things were real, you know. That was a script written, another one. This was written by Nicky from start to finish, you know what I mean? It came like in the mail, basically. You know, it was a beautiful screenplay, so. The interesting part about it is that was a script that everyone loved, everybody read, everything was beautiful. And when we shot that and put that together as the way it was in the script, it didn't work at all. I mean, Nicky was the first to say, this is not happening. For some reason, something that worked so well on the page just did not work as a film. And then we went into a real heavy, you know, editing, you know, process to get that with the flashbacks, with, you know, that wasn't written like that. Now, talking about Bad Lieutenant, the same. We were trying to raise a couple of $1 million, but, you know, we're talking about a cop on crack and this. You know, I got sick of saying, oh, you mean the cop does crack? I mean, the cop does drugs? You know, I mean, if you hadn't seen the film, it's very hard to express that movie in words to people who were really not in the film business. We were trying to raise money outside the business. They weren't gonna, Hollywood was gonna make an X-rated movie about the you know, cracked up cop and the rape of a nun. I mean, it just wasn't happening. Or if they were gonna make it, it wasn't gonna be made the way we want to make it. The key way is write the screenplay and now you have the script of what you're doing. But even with that, you know, it wasn't a long script. Sometimes it's very difficult to get the point across. So, you know, but we raised the money, but we finally got the money, you know. Walken was gonna do it. And then right before, 2-3 weeks before the shoot, we were at a meeting, me, him, and Pressman, the producer. He says, I know what Abel wants and I can't give it to him. So then he gets up and splits. And I remember Ed looks at me and says, should I go after him? I'm like, man, you know, what a question. Who knows, dude? But anyway, I didn't know Harvey. We sent him the script. He rejected the script. He threw the script away after 5 pages. But Victor Argo, a very dear friend of Harvey's, and you know, the cop we were talking about in King of New York, he talked him into doing it. Or talked him in, he talked to him about us, who we were, you know, to look at the script in a different way. And then Harvey, I think, locked into the confessional by the nun, and that, I think, was the scene that got him to do it. We're talking about Bad Lieutenant as a way to shoot a film back then where, you know, to get a kind of the rhythm of life, you know, where you're not always rushing. Because so many movies you see, I mean, I used to do it too. You know, you try to make everything perfect. You know, the car parks right in front of the thing. This guy does, you know, you light a cigarette. If the match don't light, you shoot it again. I mean, all these ridiculous thoughts you have of what, I don't know, of like the perfect world that, you know, that is encompassed. I guess it's from watching Hollywood movies or TV or whatever, you know, nothing ever goes wrong. As opposed to trying to find a real life rhythm and a real life mode to the film. We shot in the school that I grew up in. The shots of his house, driving the kids to school, the school where the kids went in the beginning, that was all me, you know, that was all where I grew up. That was the school I went to. You know, going to school with the tie on, or whole thing. You know, the nuns beating the shit out of us all day and night. You know, that's where I come from. I mean, Harvey played a Catholic here, or as much as he could play, you know. And, you know, because Harvey has a complex relationship to religion and to the image of Jesus Christ. You know, what Walken said was, I can't play this part because Jesus Christ is an overused literary symbol to me. You know what I mean? It's a good point, you know. And but for Harvey, it didn't. I mean, I think he got really to the soul of the matter, you know. But nobody was doing drugs in that film at all. You know what I mean? We wouldn't do drugs like that in front of the camera, absolutely not. You know what I mean? It was her birthday, it was the last day to shoot, and you know, she's gonna do what she's gonna do, you know what I mean? So. But Harvey wasn't doing any drugs. You know, we talked about the scene, we talked about how we were gonna do it. I mean, I was thinking in a whole other way. We had rehearsed that scene with Walken. We're gonna play that scene absolutely 180 degrees different. You know, almost a comedy, where they ended up dancing with the radio playing. I mean, it was, forget it. You know, but, you know, Harvey brought his thing to it. You know. It was no different than any other scene, you know what I mean? So, you know what I mean? I mean, we were doing the same, we were shooting long takes, you know, weren't getting fancy with the camera. We're shooting one camera, one guy, one person, you know, it's kind of simple thing, but we're letting the camera really run, you know. So for that film, we consciously tried to move away and we looked for some new actors. And the two guys that when you put the word out in town, there was two names that came back all over the place, and that was Benicio del Toro and Vinnie Gallo, because they were relatively unknown at the time, so. Very cool, you know, I got a relationship with Benicio. We don't work together though, for some reason. You know, but Benicio, he's doing his film, Vinny's doing his film, so everybody's happy, except Vinny. He's not happy with anybody. Chris Penn, you know, he won the award in Venice for the film, for his work. You know, I mean, that's really it. I mean, he's dead. You know, the women, Gretchen, Isabella Rossellini, Annabella Sciorra, you know, a lot of those people are still there, are still out there. Victor Argo, obviously, because he's in all the films. So it's cool, we're all coming together to do that. It was funny though, we were supposed to shoot that film with Nick Cage. Yeah, can you believe that? Christopher's, you know, his rhythms are his rhythms. I mean, you know, they're infamous, right? I mean, they imitate him on Saturday Night Live. You know what I mean? Everybody, you know, he's like a, you know, him and Al and Scarface. So these are the two, you know what I mean, most imitated kind of guys. You don't have to tell Chris a lot, you know. He got it, he understood it. You know, we were on the same page, you know. Chris is great. Chris is a dream, you know. Yeah, you know, she wanted to do the film, she wanted to produce that film, and we were going to produce it for a couple of $1 million. But then she became, when she wanted to act in it, then at that time she was like red hot. Her film had not come out yet, the one she did with Defoe. So she had a real hot, a film is the hottest before it comes out. So that was, I forget the name, the film takes place in a jury, in a courtroom, the whole deal. Her record was #1, right? So between these three things, you know, we were able to raise $12 million. Not that it would have been any different, I don't know, maybe it would have been, who knows. So, you know, Madonna wants to act, that's what she wants to do more than anything, you know what I mean? I mean, you know, she just watches Magnani, Sophia Loren, that period of neorealist Italian. At that time, you know, she was very much on that. And, you know, Harvey bought into using her into it, you know. You know, in every film, you have your spats, you have your fighting, you have your whatever, you know. The problem with that is when it was over, she tried, because she was hurt so many times before by critics, knocking the film, she thought she'd be the first one and say, film is no good, right? Before it came out. Which, man, you know, I don't care what, you don't knock your own movie. And meanwhile, it was the only film, she got great reviews in The Voice and the New York Times, which is the only two papers she cared about at that time. So, but otherwise, you know, it was fine. I mean, I think she did what had to be done in the film. You know? Strauss-Kahn was at a point I want to make a film about, you know, almost on a Shakespearean type, you know, people in high places, you know, presidents and kings, you know what I mean? And this kind of came together. It's almost like a Bad Lieutenant. It's very much of our ilk, this guy. And the more we research, the more deep I'm into it, the more it's an incredible story, But then again, it's not just the story of Strauss-Kahn, And again, the actor matching the part, Depardieu, is incredible, and obviously Depardieu, I don't know, have you seen him lately? He's not Strauss-Kahn, But then this is also about Berlusconi. It's about Clinton. It's about anyone, again, power being the ultimate aphrodisiac, as Henry Kissinger would say. I was at Woodstock, the Summer of Love. I mean, you know how many people Woodstock set off on a course of drug and alcohol addiction? Forget it, because it was great. I was around when the cover of the Times magazine called cocaine a wonder drug, right? You don't get addicted, please, okay? You don't get hungover like alcohol, right? They actually had that on the cover of the New York Times, of the Newsweek and the Times, okay, at one point. I mean, people were doing it as opposed to doing alcohol and heroin, I guess, I don't know. So I'm from a world of the 60s where drugs and, were like, I don't know, were some kind of nirvana. Or, being preached to as some kind of nirvana. And we were kids, so, And coming from an addicted family, from addicted DNA, so. She didn't overdose, she just died from when these people who shoot up constantly, they get this thing up by their heart. I don't know what it is. It's like a disease that a lot of these cats get. She was a lifelong, she started when she was 20 and she died when she was 39 or something. You just can't be shooting up every day of your life. As much as she thought the heroin was an elixir of life and it was the greatest thing, at least she died thinking of it. We're doing a film about Pasolini, so I could speak of that. We wrote a script about the last days of Pasolini. So let's say his work to me is like the pinnacle. Just his talent, his imagination, his ability, his understanding. It's like it's everything in one. His eyes. Marcello, what makes Pasolini the greatest? Why is Pasolini the greatest?
Why Pasolini is what?
The greatest. Because of his intelligence, because of his artistic temperament, because his ability to put his whole life in front of him, right? Because of everything there is, right? His appreciation, his knowledge of music.
Well, he is all, I think he's all in both.
Yeah, all in one.
There's no way they can judge Pasolini.
No, he was saying why. He's asked me why am I so inspired by him? Because he's I know. How can you answer this question?
What a question is that?
Yeah. Put the camera on
I
it.
mean, probably wants to know the affinity that you had with his work. Probably that's the right question.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's the right question. When you grow up with these guys as your masters, you know what I'm saying? In other words, we were at a very formative stage when we saw these movies. After I saw Salo, I stopped calling myself a director. You know what I mean? These are films that are like, the Gospel according to St. Matthew. Working on that film again with the research. The beauty and the great part of what I do is, to read the scripts of the films he didn't make. And in our movie, we want to shoot those scenes. That we're going to trying to go all the way. We're trying to, make it happen. Give the camera a reason to turn on. Outside of the fact that you've got a story and A goes to B and, the Martians just landed or there's a vampire around the corner or, this gang is trying to take over that gang or the heroin is coming in from here and you know what I mean? Other than that, there is the life, you know. I mean, you're filming life, man. I mean, every film is a documentary, and it's the only art form that actually films death, as Godard would say. You're filming death in progress. You're watching people get older, and you're going, you know, in a 10-minute take, that actor is 10 minutes down the line of his life. If you have it in you to be whatever, you know, a filmmaker or a musician or someone who wants to, you know, express what's inside of them. In every group there's the storytellers, man. You know, whether you're scratching on a cave wall, it's talking around the campfire, there's always somebody who's gonna be that role. And that was my gig, you know. And when you're making films, it's a group trip all the way, you know, without the camera, without the sound, without the script, without the actors, you know, it's the ultimate group. You're only as strong as the weakest member of the team, you know.